Paper clips are better than apples. That's what I'm getting from other tier lists because they're comparing a P2020 to a 301. Pistols have specific features to pistols, and they should be rated within a pistol class. Rifles within a rifle class. So that's what I'm going to do for you. I'm also going to do this from a common player's perspective. I'm assuming that you can't hit every shot. I'm assuming that you might need a little help from hip fire whenever you're up close. And I will try and drop as much knowledge as I can about each weapon class. Now that's a lot of information. I know I'm going to miss some. So I've brought in Tony the Phony to help me fill in some of those gaps. So prepare yourself for the first actually helpful Season 15 weapon tier list. Rifles should be a staple in your arsenal, and that anvil receiver really changed things in Season 15. I think the flatline just absolutely dominates over the 301 now. I mean, this thing, if you put it on single fire, does some massive damage, and you can put pretty much any optic you want on it, except for some of the very sniper specific ones, so you have a wide range of flexibility in this gun. Put it back on auto, and you've got a pretty predictable and heavy damage dealing gun. 301, there's no question that it's low recoil. It makes it a solid choice for those who don't have hours to spend practicing. I would not use the anvil receiver on this gun as much as I would on the flatline. I just don't think that there's enough benefit to it. So that puts 301 and flatline as top 2 for sure. When we look at the Hemlock single fire function, it's overshadowed by the flatline and 301 right now. The Havoc, at least, with a really high fire rate, and especially when you get that turbocharger, it just absolutely racks up close.
I still think the Hemlock is easier to use. It has decent burst hipfire and it's pretty solid mid-range.
When you're looking at the Marksman class, I think that diversity actually kind of hurts you. So whenever you're looking at the bow, it is easily one of the most powerful guns that's in this class, but it's also probably the hardest to use, even though it's a legendary gun right now. So I would put it at the bottom of the Marksman class. Triple take is pretty nice because it does have a wide spread, but the damage that you get out of the gun, I think you are better off over here with the 30-30 and G7.
The one thing you have to know about the Marksman is that you should always try to take your time between each shot, especially if you're a beginner. So if you try not to spam it as much as you think you should, take your breath between each shot, really line up your crosshair and hope it hits.
Yeah, speaking of the G7, it's definitely top of the Marksman class because its rate of fire, its accuracy, its hip fire, its double tap trigger, especially in Season 15 here, is really top notch. Absolutely the one to grab for Marksman. Alright guys, for shotguns, for newer guys, I do like the Mastiff as a primary pick because of the horizontal spread of it. I know that it's no longer a legendary gun, but I still think, with new guys doing panic aim and maybe not having the best tracking, that's going to be key, especially with as soon as you do damage, even if it's only that 11, you're going to get that enemy slowed and increase your survivability. So I really like that about the Mastiff. PK is a strong weapon. It seems like just spending a little bit of time, even if it's only, 20 minutes in the range with it, you can get pretty good with it. And then these two, I really don't like them as shotguns. Even though the Eva's got, a bunch of upgradability with its attachments, it still just doesn't do the job. It's, it's a very spray and pray gun. And the Mosey just doesn't have the punch that I'm really looking for to hit with a shotgun up close.
I would disagree with you. I think the EVA and the Mozambique are the easiest guns to use simply because they're auto fire. So that means is if you're on mouse or if you're holding the trigger on a controller, you can just hold it and it'll keep shooting. Whereas with the Mastiff and the PK, you have to keep clicking or you have to keep pressing the trigger in order for the shot to come out. I think that's great because all you have to focus on is tracking an opponent.
Nice, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm not gonna flip any around yet, but I do recognize, that being able to hold down the trigger on those is pretty helpful. All right, so let's talk about these snipers. Now, one thing I want to distinguish is that pro players and novice or beginner players have a very different experience in the game. You will see a lot of experienced people diss on the charge rifle so much because it's got 0 bullet drop. They all want it taken out of the game. It doesn't require any skill, but I think that's fundamental to the game. You gotta have guns that kind of ease you into the weapon types. I mean, how else are you gonna learn how to use, you don't go out and shoot, a 50 cal gun in real life the first time you ever shoot a gun. You work your way up to it. You learn this skill, and that's what you do with the charge rifle. So to that degree, I also think that the rest of the snipers should be in that order, because you're gonna learn how to use the gun, learn the optics, know what you want, how to track targets with snipers, how to lead targets with snipers. Then you're going to go to your semi-auto longbow, where your follow-up shots are very quick, but you can really start to differentiate precision shooting versus just, a freaking beam rifle. Sentinel goes in third because, yeah, high damage, but, you got to really be comfortable with precision and resource management. And then, of course, the Kraber, best sniper gun in the game, but probably the worst one for a new guy to pick up. It's very unforgiving.
I think this is a good summary and a good order. The Charge Rifle for beginners almost has training wheels.
It's a good way to put it.
It does eat up 2 bullets per shot, and you only have 4 shots before you have to reload. It is still the easiest gun to get 4K. It's the easiest gun to just deal a ton of damage.
So pistols, which maybe this belongs down here. Maybe it doesn't.
I think it does.
Yeah, that's the great debate. I mean, there is some equal evidence saying that it's a pistol versus not. I think it goes without saying that the legendary RE45 right now is absolutely insane. It's got like 0 recoil to it. I mean, it's a slight up and to the right pattern. Comes with the gold sight, 25 rounds per mag. It's got, technically a red mag and red sight, which I had wished that was actually a buff, but it's not. It's the same as the purple sight and a purple mag from last season, so that's okay. It's still really good. For newer guys, definitely going to put the P2020 next and the Wingman last. The P2020 is just so much softer to use. You can just fire away at that thing. Its fire rate is much higher. It's got good ammo capacity as well, so if you miss 1 or 2, it's not a big deal. The Wingman, you gotta be on point 100%. I mean, the thing basically flips out of your screen as soon as it fires.
I think this is the correct order, but the Wingman is definitely better in most aspects, assuming that you're good at the game, that you've played, hundreds and hundreds of hours. And definitely it's going to have more uses later in your gaming career.
So the LMG category, some buffs, I think. And even though these changes we're talking about here in the patch notes, we're talking about, just little sentences. Just reduced recoil at the beginning of the pattern. If you use the L-Star in Season 14, then you would know that it just sucked. Like every other LMG was much better than it. But with that small change in Season 15, it became a very usable gun for the general player base. I also think that the change they did on the Rampage, where when you pick it up, it's automatically charged, definitely puts it in second place. Devotion does not have that capability. You have to be able to charge it up or find the hop, so you're kind of playing a little bit of a gamble if it's going to really benefit you. And the Spitfire, very available. Not my favorite recoil pattern, but very easy to kind of spray and pray with. Do you disagree with any of that?
With the L-Star and the placement of the Rampage, I think I would switch them. The Rampage has very little recoil, and I would almost equate it to like a repeater in the fact that you can use it long range and you can still hit most of your shots. It has a huge magazine size. It can break doors down as well. There's a lot of pros to this gun, but the L-Star has this mechanic where it doesn't have to necessarily reload. So instead you kind of just shoot it off and then you occasionally just pause and you don't have to worry about just reloading. So it's a great gun.
I think the difference between the Rampage and L-Star, I think I'm going to bump the L-Star back up only because the L-Star is more available. Now the Volt did get nerfed a little bit. Its bullet drop and its speed was reduced, but I've played a little bit this season. We're only a week in, and I don't find it that much different. I mean, for the ranges I would be using the Volt, it's still very viable as an SMG. Now for new players, I have a hard time recommending these really fast firing guns. And the only reason I say that is because, if you're, let's say it takes a second to empty a mag, which is about correct for these two, for the 99 in the car. If your mag empties in a second and it takes 3/4 of a second to reload that mag, you're now saying I'm comfortable being in a gunfight relatively up close, most likely, and being armed, disarmed 1/3 of the time. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so while their damage is really high, really like the guns, I have a hard time getting over that fact. I would recommend for newer people the alternator. It has essentially a straight up recoil pattern It's still a very damage dealing gun. Its fire rate is still quick, but not so quick that you're gonna empty all of your ammo real quick. You can kind of shoot a few rounds, pause, shoot some more rounds, and you still got lots of ammo to go. And it still holds, even though it doesn't technically have a stock, it still allows a stock and a lot of the other attachments that these guys do, or in the case of the car, do not, like a laser sight. Up in last place is the Prowler. Its hipfire isn't that great. As soon as you go further out than that, you really got to watch your recoil and you're not going to do that much damage. And it's not an easy gun to train with quickly, so I do not recommend this for newer or casual players.
The Prowler is actually really easy to use. And if you're on controller, I would say it's probably switched up with the car SMG or even the R99.
Look at these, not about how much the gun does initially, because if you were looking for the highest damage, you'd put the wingman up front, you'd put the PK up front, you'd put the bow up front. It's about getting that damage on your target. That's what's important, not what the gun is capable, but what you're capable of and how it meshes with you.
I'm still a little upset that the Mozambique is not in the pistol category, but other than that, I think for the most part, this is pretty well said. Not deal the most damage per second, not one clip someone. These are guns that you can be accurate with consistently, and that's kind of a big deal. That's something that's not talked about enough in Apex Legends.
Guys, I've been playing since Season 0. I've never seen a list that weighted things like this, so if you enjoyed it, please leave a like for me. If you enjoyed Tony's input on it, then you should go check out his channel. He's got a lot of fun videos on there, and we'll see you in the next one.